Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Standing Committee on Governance and Employee Issues. Vice Chair McCullough, would you mind doing a roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Clancy.
Here.
Vice Chair Johnson.
You're the vice chair, but I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Member Johnson.
Here.
Subcommittee Vice Chair McCullough is also here.
Thank you. So we're actually going to be following the agenda as written. The first item we are taking up is GB 3-36, which is a petition from a school employee to consider the approval of requested donated sick days for a para educator at Norback Avenue High School. And I mean, Norback Avenue School, sorry, not high school. And I know that we have Melinda Martin here to speak on that item. So Melinda, you're free to speak.
Thank you. And thank you both for helping me to get the correct link for tonight's meeting, because I was scrambling at 5:29 when it said link didn't work. So I'm here on behalf of one of the paraeducators at Norback Elementary School. She found out her husband found out in November or December that he has some form of cancer. She has only been working for the school for less than 3 years, so she earns 1 sick day a month. She unfortunately had COVID after the COVID days were taken away, so had to use like 5 of her days when she was sick with COVID, and it was after April 1st of last year, so she couldn't use the COVID days to take that time. Her husband lost his job because of his illness, so he is collecting unemployment at this time, and she is pretty much the sole provider for the household. He goes for treatments to Dana-Farber in Boston. He doesn't have a set schedule. It's pretty much like every 2 weeks, she needs 1 day off. She used her last sick day the day before February vacation. So she's currently at 0. Again, she will earn a day in March. She will earn a day in April. But if she needs 2 days, that means she goes 1 day without pay. So the educators at Norback got together and they donated a total of 69 days. Obviously, she won't need all 69 days because she's pretty much working. You know, there are some weeks when she's working all 2 weeks. There's some weeks where she needs 1 or 2 days off. We just want to make sure that she doesn't go without pay for even 1 or 2 days because, again, her husband lost his job because of his inability to work with his illness. So I do have a list of the educators that signed how many days they wanted to donate. It does total 69 days. We're already past the 100-day mark. So the most she would need if she was going to be out the rest of the year would be a little less than 80, but she does want to continue working when she can. So we're asking that, I know this is an exception. This isn't typically how we do sick day donations, but we want to make sure if for some reason she gets sick or her husband needs to be, needs more than 1 day of care at a time, that she's covered with her full pay.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure if anyone from administration wants to speak on this item because it is a unique item that we are being brought to at this point. I do have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have any questions on this item before I go. So my question to administration is, this is a unique situation, obviously, because it's actually for donated sick days to use in need of a spouse. And I'm just wondering, what is the verbiage regarding sick days for a spouse or a family member in our contract?
So I'm happy to answer that question through the chair. Looking at the instructional assistant contract, under Article 4, Section I, it does state that instructional assistants may use up to a maximum of 10 days to attend to the illness of a spouse, child, or parent.
Okay, thank you. So I know in the past it's always been brought to us that it's an employee who we've authorized for sick days. And I would, following the contract, I'm okay with the approval of donated sick days, but I would like to make the motion that we approve the donated sick days, but up to the 10 donated days, up to the 10 sick days for this employee to take her husband, to care for her husband while he is sick. So that would be my motion on the table at this point. I'm not sure if there's anyone else or. Molly, I'm sorry. Member
Thank you.
McCullough?
Through the chair to administration. So if we did this now, we'd be making an exception to vote the 10 days for the care of a significant other with a health related issue for the needed care as per out of the 69 days that the coworkers have donated. And that would be us approving that. Is there anything specific other than that about the employee illness, or that is separate completely? Through the chair.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if anyone on administration could just answer that question. So I understand what we're saying is that with the contract, the instructional assistant contract currently says that employee can use up to 10 days for the care of a family member who is ill, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and so then this would be above, so that these 10 days would cover that because the employee is out of days currently. And then if they have their own illness on top of that, are they still accruing their own days for those illnesses through the chair?
So through the chair, my understanding is that currently she does not have any more sick days, but that she will accrue a day per month moving forward. So that would mean March, April, May, June, so 4 additional days. My understanding is that there's 69, is that correct? 69 donated days that have been collected. However, the language in the contract states that only 10 max could be used to take care of a spouse. So feasibly, that would be 14 days from now to the end of the school year. If she herself became sick, and these donated sick days would be under her account. So we wouldn't say, are you sick or is your husband sick? It would just be part of her sick days.
Thank you for that clarification. I apologize if my wording on the question itself were a little challenging. So you answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. So if she, so I do have a question to the administration. So if she was to use, if she accrues 4 more sick days, if my motion stands to approve the 10 sick days and she accrues 4 on top of that, are these 10 sick days, could they be excluded from the 4 that she can earn? So what I'm saying, if she got sick, she'll have 4 to take care of herself or, for that illness. And the 10 sick days that if we use up to the 10 sick days for her to care for her spouse, could that be separated?
So how it is grouped together under her account would be, she would have, if we approve these 10, she would have 10 sick days currently. And then at the beginning of each month, she would accrue another day.
Okay.
It goes into one sort of sick pot. We can differentiate it, but we typically do not.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to keep with my motion that we approve the days up to 10 sick days for this particular employee. And then if need be, if we need to bring this back to school committee for more sick days for her to care for her spouse, we can do it at that point. So that would be my motion. Member McCullough, if you could please do a roll call on that.
Chair Clancy,
Yes.
Member Johnson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair McCullough, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I understand because I need to call her tonight. So of the 69 days, 10 of those will be given to her to use for her husband.
Correct.
And then the days she earned, because that was her concern, if she gets sick, would she have, so the 4 days that she'll earn, again, she'll only have like 1 in March. Those will be specifically for her to use, but sorry. So if she ends up, I hate to think the worst case scenario, but what if she gets like a stomach bug next week and needs to miss 3 days? Does she use 3 of those 10 days? Does she use like the 1 sick day that she earned and then 2 of the 10 days? I just want to make sure I understand when I explain it to her. So I apologize for the
No,
question.
no, absolutely. So this is the way I'm looking at it, and administration, please correct me if I am wrong. Right now, she'll be given 10 sick days.
Okay.
She will accrue 4 more. Essentially, she'll have 14 sick days to use through the remainder of the school year. Am I correct with that?
Through the chair, that is absolutely correct. So
Okay.
she'll got a bank of 10 days. As soon as we get the list tomorrow, we can do that. And then as she accrues them, we'll continue to go into the bank of her own personal sick day bank. So
Okay.
potentially she will have 14 by the end of the school year to
Yes.
use as she needs. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And then if she happens to be running out, I can go to school committee again and ask for, of the 69 donated sick days, more to be given specifically to her because of where her husband's at.
Where her husband's at, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
And okay. And that was approved. So I can be all emotional now because I know last year I got emotional before you guys approved it and had to
will-
stop.
I'm sorry, but the meeting will have to be fully approved by school committee. So I don't believe it will be on for this. It won't be on for this week. It might be in 2 more weeks.
Okay. But if I get that list, she'll get the 10 days.
But you know what what I would
Sorry.
do? I'm going to make the motion that we cover her sick days until the next school committee meeting is fully
Okay.
approved.
Okay. And I
So
will
she'll
get,
be all set.
okay. And Ms. Q, would you like me to email you that list, or who do I email? Like, I'll send pictures of the list and send the names, and who should I get that list to? Because I'll do that tonight.
You can send it to me. Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank
I'll-
you.
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Melinda, and I'll call the roll on that for the motion to cover the days until the next full meeting. Member Clancy,
Yes.
Member Johnson,
Yes.
and Member McCullough. Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Melinda. Have a great night. All right. And our next item, which I'm happy to have that brought back to school committee, is GB 2-175, which was to request the administration to review and update the dress code policy. And this was in conjunction with an item that we had regarding backpacks. But at that point, we started to look more at our dress code policy. And I know that each of you have received the backup of the updated dress code policy. So I'm not sure if anyone from administration would like to talk, because I know that there's been quite some work done on this with our students and our administration. So I'm just not, if there's anyone from administration who would like to speak on this item.
Good
Dr.
evening, through the
Good
chair.
evening.
Yes, I'll speak very briefly about it. So we've been hard at work to revise the dress code policy, which already, as you mentioned, had undergone significant revisions in the past. We wanted to capture more student voice and input from our principals to ensure that there was more clarity around the policy in order to establish a consistent and even implementation of the dress code policy. So we met with principals in October. We spent significant amount of time with our student advisory committee in December and January, and it was a very spirited conversation. This topic had resonated with our students, and they were very excited to provide some input. And some of the surveys we received from principals also provided some input into some of the revisions that you have in front of you. We realized that dress codes are important because they communicate the organizational expectations. They promote safety and foster a sense of belonging and inclusivity. And we hope that we will be able to capture this in a positive, dress code policy that was written in a positive manner.
Great, thank you. And I do know that we have a student. I don't see her on, but maybe I can do it this way. Who would like to speak on this item? Andrew, do you see anybody? Yeah, under attendees.
I see.
She's there.
Elena, she's
Alana.
there. Alana. I think she's muted though.
Should be. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Alana. Thanks for coming tonight. I know that you had spoken with us at one of our previous meetings, so we're excited to have you here tonight. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the dress code policy.
My thoughts on about dress code. I just think that there's a new style now since the dress code's been made, and that definitely now they like to wear more revealing stuff, and that I just think that the dress code should be more relaxed so that people could feel more comfortable in what they're wearing. Or because at my school, especially in the summer, it gets really hot in classrooms, and if we can't wear tank tops or something to let us cool down, we get so hot and so sweaty, and it smells so bad.
Great. No, thank you. And once this, if this policy does get approved and it gets sent to full committee for approval, I'm very happy with the policy. I'm not sure if either one of my colleagues would like to speak on the policy. I know Member McCullough has really been spearheading our dress code policy for a while now. So I'm not sure if you'd like to speak on this item, Molly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Through the chair. First of all, I'd like to thank administration for truly putting in the time to work with our students and our principals and staff to get the input on this policy. I think it's so important. I know we've been working on this for quite a while. We've looked at various dress code policies across the country, across the state, and really looking to ensure that they're equitable and that they're not gender biased and that they're really inclusive for all of our students. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we want to make sure that it's a safe environment for our students, and that includes components of the dress code. And just really, one of the things we've continually asked for over the years is getting the feedback from our students, our caregivers, and our staff. And I think this is an important way that we did that with this policy. I'm very happy with the draft policy that is before us tonight. And if the chair would be amenable, I would just make a motion that there is a section about head coverings. If that could be moved under the bulleted sections, if administration feels that that's the more appropriate place, it kind of separates out the headscarves, the coverings separately from the other items. And I think maybe it should go under the bulleted section, but my motion would be that if administration finds that that formatting makes more sense, that we carry it out that way because it specifies. So I'm not sure if administration has any thoughts on that, or if Chair Clancy has any thoughts on that. But again, I just appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I know we've been at it for a while.
Administration, I'm fine with that being moved. I know we've looked at the flow of the policy, so that's very clear and simple actually for people to follow. So administration, are you okay with moving that into the bullet?
Through the chair, yes, we are.
Okay. Member Johnson?
Thank you. I just have a question, and who should answer it? Under the bullet points regarding the hooded sweatshirts, and hoods are allowed as long as they don't cover the face. Is this starting once this gets approved? That's when this will go into effect, or is that currently what the policy reads? I just don't recall.
Administration?
Oh, so through the chair. So hooded sweatshirts are allowed, but our students reported that they have reasons that they would like to be able to pull their hoods up, such as bad hair day, makes them feel safe. And typically in our schools, our students are asked to take their hoods off. Our only ask is that students' faces are not covered. And so that was one of the requests that our students brought forward about amending the school committee policy regarding hooded sweatshirts, that they can be worn, but there's some flexibility about their hoods.
Thank you. In regards to the hoods, what was the feedback from the principals and the teachers in the school in regards to that? Through the chair.
Administration?
So through the chair, it was split.
Oh, Maria, I can't hear you anymore.
I can.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
I can't hear.
Can you hear anyone?
I think I got you.
I can
I'm
hear
sorry.
it.
I have you now. I had to unmute and mute again for some reason.
So through the chair, it was split. There was some strong feelings about it's best if hoods are kept down. Other administrators felt that if it made students feel more comfortable and at ease for learning, it was something that they could live with. Students were very adamant that it shouldn't be a problem if they want to put their hood up. So at the end of the day, I believe that the decision was that it would be permissible with school administration for students to be able to wear their hoods up as long as their faces were not covered in any way.
Thank you. Member
Thank you.
Johnson?
Now that's it. I just want to make a comment. When I read that, when you look at it, I mean, I just think it's a slippery slope for us to go down in regards to that, on how far, how far it may cover the face or whatever. But so I was just surprised to see that. But other than that, I have no other questions.
Okay. Thank you. Are you okay with it being part of the policy, Member Johnson?
I am. Yes, I would. It'd be interesting to see if there's any questions from the full committee moving forward on that. That's all.
Sure. Member McCullough?
Thank you. And thank you, Member Johnson, for asking that question, because that was actually something I was curious about as well. I found that interesting because looking at some other policies, some districts allow it, some don't, some allow it, but they want to be able to see the students' ears. There were all different variations. So I did appreciate you asking that question because I was curious as well as to what our administrators and principals and teachers had for feedback on that. And since it seemed that it became agreeable when you got to the point of as long as the face wasn't covered at all, that it would be permissible. We can always, we'll have to see what happens at the full meeting, but the good thing about policies is we can revise them if there's an issue with them. So certainly if it does pass the full committee, it is something that we can continue to monitor and, work with administration to make sure we're getting educator feedback on the policy and see how it is going. So again, I just thank you, Member Johnson, for asking that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Member McCullough. And I will say this was actually brought up about 2 years ago when we first started looking at the policy, and it was something that students had asked for. So, and I agree, like if we're seeing an issue in our schools or anything that, like you said, Member McCullough, we can always bring policy back and relook at things if we need to make some changes. So thank you. So at this point, I would like to make a motion that we approve with the bullet change by Member McCullough and move the dress code policy to full committee for approval. Member McCullough, roll call.
Chair Clancy,
Yes.
Member Johnson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair McCullough, yes.
Okay, thank you. And our next item is regarding our strategic plan, which is ROS 3-1.2 regarding the strategic plan. And I'm going to actually turn it over to administration now, because I know that we have some people here to speak on this item. And I believe Dr. Benares, you will be taking over. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, good evening, everybody. So we are pleased to share another update on where we are with the development of our strategic plan, or really just taking the themes from the entry listening and learning tour that I had completed and shared with the committee. As you know, we have 6 new themes that came out of the entry plan. And so tonight, through the leadership or under the leadership of our Deputy Superintendent, Brian Allen, we will share where we would like to recommend that we go with these themes and the organization that we would like to have come in to help facilitate, so that we are really putting together the next iteration of the strategic plan that is not only thorough in what we're going to do, but how we're going to measure it and the frequency of the measurement, so that we are monitoring what we say we're going to do and making those necessary adjustments along the way so that we achieve those outcomes that we want for our scholars. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Allen, and he will introduce our guests and take us through the next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm just going to share my screen
Sure.
just to take the backup that everybody has, but just so we can see what that. 1 second. All right. So in terms of the next steps, the administration is recommending these 4 areas. First is really finalizing the appointment of the advisory committee. I think we have looked at the prior strategic plan committee. We've worked with WEC in terms of what the superintendent search committee looked like. We've really identified key groups and stakeholders to be part of the advisory committee. And I think we're at about 40 names or so, but I've given a representation here of the different groups. Clearly, the superintendent's cabinet and school committee members, union representation, and then each of our parent groups, Citywide Parent Plan Advisory Committee, the SPED PAC, the LPAC, teachers, parents, students, really representing the district, including city and elected officials, mayor, city councilors, state representatives or senators, city manager's office, and then some of the key city departments that the Worcester Public Schools interfaces with. And then really the largest group is our community business partners. And you can see a list, again, as included in your backup, of various community organizations, business partners that we work closely with that either were part of prior strategic plan or the community groups. And so with the school committee's approval, we'd want to move forward immediately with really inviting these stakeholders to be part of our strategic plan advisory committee. After that, really, we need to flesh out what the schedule will look like. You've seen this slide before in an earlier presentation, but in terms of what the schedule looks like, and then when we can hopefully have a final plan to the school committee and adopted by the end of this school year, I think is our current target. So bringing these stakeholders together. I'm just going to advance the next slide because it really ties together. Using Hanover Research, who will speak immediately after me, to facilitate our strategic plan and the subcommittee work. And then really, in terms of thinking about the starting point of our themes, our priorities, our goals, our initiatives. And I've just listed here what the current strategic plan was, what the superintendent's entry plan was, and maybe the 2023 strategic plan committee will come up with completely different themes, priorities, and so forth. And so that is all to be developed, but we think the first steps would be to finalize and identify the advisory committee members, bring and hand over research on. They will give a brief presentation after this, like I said, and then really begin the work through the advisory committee and subcommittee works and engaging all the stakeholders as needed. So let me just stop sharing my screen. And if I can I'll pause there just to see if there's any questions before I turn over to Hanover Research.
I'll look to my colleagues. Any questions? Ms. McCullough, Member McCullough?
Thank you. Through the chair, just to clarify, Mr. Allen. So the ultimate objective would be have the timeline and plan in place by the end of this current school year to begin the work with the Hanover group and the subcommittees, correct?
Through the chair, we recognize, yes, we recognize
Okay.
we're a little behind that schedule. We know it's going to be an aggressive schedule, but that is still going to be our target, is to have something in place by the end of this school year.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had that correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now if I can introduce Anne, are you going to be speaking, or Julie? I'm not sure. I'm gonna just turn it over to, I'll let Hanover Research introduce themselves, and I know they're going to give maybe a 10 or 15-minute overview of their work to support the district.
Great, thank you. Anne?
Actually,
Oh,
hi,
Julia.
yeah, I know. We got 3 of us on here. So actually, one of the first things I'll do is introduce you, everyone that's on the Hanover team. We have a quick slide that we're gonna go through and walk through. So I'm gonna pull that up really quick and then just introduce myself and my colleagues that are on the call. So can you all, can you all see the?
Yes.
Okay, and just, can you see it? My computer does a weird thing. Can you see the actual presentation mode? Or does it look like the?
Yeah, no, it looks fine.
Okay,
It's
it
great.
says I'm
Thank you.
sharing one screen, but it actually shares another. So I always want to make sure I'm sharing the right one. So just a little bit about your Hanover team, and I'll briefly go over who Hanover is, and then we'll dive into some of the work we have planned and how our advisory process works for the strategic planning. So you have 3 members on your team, Dr. Ann Spear. She will be the one who's heading up the workshops and the consultations we'll be doing with the strategic planning team. Your content director, Dr. Amanda Wagner, who will be leading the research work, and I'll explain a little bit about how all this works in just a second. And then myself, Julie Shedfield, I'm the relationship director. So my main role is to just make sure that Worcester is maximizing their membership that they have. So just a little bit about who we are. So Hanover Research, we are a custom research firm. And basically we work with school districts across the country on a wide variety of issues. And we do it through what we call a mixed methodology approach. So through Hanover, we can do a variety of different types of research. Our team is supported by over 200 analysts. So basically we work with school districts to evaluate what their needs are, develop a mixed methodology approach, which Dr. Wagner will go over a little bit in terms of what we've learned so far in our initial meeting with the district and kind of what our ideas are for that. And then in addition to that, we have the strategic advising piece. So taking what we're getting out of the ongoing research that we're doing, and then Anne will use that to build your consultations and workshops as you work to develop your strategic plan. So that's a very brief overview. The way it works, Worcester has 2 custom research queues with us. So what that means is our members in each research queue can do as many projects as they want. You just done 1 project at a time. So because you all have 2 research queues, you'll always have 2 research projects that are going on to support the work within the district. So any questions so far?
Member McCullough or Member Johnson? No, okay. I don't at this point.
Thanks. And then the last thing, just one resource that the district will have access to is something called our Hanover Digital Portal. This is where we upload syndicated reports, toolkits, webinars, research that we've done in schools across the country, so that you all have access to research outside of the strategic planning and other initiatives we might be working on the district with. So that's something that generally the leadership team within the district will have access to. And that's something that we're currently working on as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Amanda to kind of work through the research support piece.
Thank you. So as Julie mentioned, we are working through in this project sequence here to engage a mixed methodological approach. These projects that we have here are an example sequence of recommended projects, but this is fluid. So as priorities change and as we know things come up, this is a completely fluid and flexible process to make sure that we're fully meeting your needs. So these projects were developed in alignment with best practices and research in educational strategic planning, as well as research and best practices across your priority areas. So you'll see across some of these, we aligned these to the themes that emerged already from the entry plan listening sessions, but we'll continue to engage in conversations. And as I mentioned, this will continue to be fluid. We do have, you'll see illustrated in the 2 project queues, the strategic planning diagnostic survey and infographic, which are currently underway. And those will illustrate projects that will engage with the strategic planning process. We have a data analysis, which is a quantitative approach. And then we also have community facilitation groups, that are in-depth interviews. So you can see just in this example, initially, we are making sure that we're engaging both quantitative as well as qualitative, and in alignment with the themes, for example, staff retention and mobility analyses. And these would dig into the themes that emerged, as well as best practices in maximizing facilities for student success, for example, would be secondary research.
And with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague Anne to review the strategic planning advisory piece.
Hi. So in addition to supporting you in the research queue and making sure that we get projects, whether that's the primary research, such as a surveys, data analysis, and qualitative analysis, we also do advisory work. So that means that we'll be able to work with your strategic planning committee as well as the subcommittees to really help you walk through what is our current state and how do we get to our ideal state. So this slide outlines how we have goals outlined and some of the activities in order to reach those goals during our support of your development of the strategic plan. So we really help the committee walk through and understand some of the strategic planning process. We review any foundational statements if necessary and requested. And then we start looking through where are we at based on what our data, our mixed methods data say, what themes have we done better or worse during performance, and what are the priorities that are attached, the priorities moving forward. Then we identify the appropriate goals, and we believe in making sure that you have something that you can measure so that you can report that progress, that you make sure that you're able to communicate and maintain transparency with your community as the implementation of the strategic plan goes forward in the next 5 years. And so because of that, we ensure that we have indicators to measure progress of what you've identified within your strategic plan. So at this time, we would love to stop sharing our presentation and take any questions or if there's any discussions that we can help with.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to look to administration. I'm not sure if you want to add anything else to this before I turn it over to my colleagues. You good? Okay. Member McCullough, Member Johnson. When I'm thinking about this, I'm just thinking of funding sources for this. So I'm just not sure if that's already been established under our budget, or if, there's something that we need to look at. If administration could just answer that for me. Mr. Allen?
Yep, to the chair. So you're talking about the overall process of the research, and yep. So we've identified funds through ESSER to cover these costs.
Okay. Thank you. And on that note, I'm very satisfied with moving this process to the next phase. It's exciting to be part of this, and I thank you all for your work on this. At this point, I would like to make a motion that we send this particular portion to the full committee for approval, and that we continue to hold this item here in standing committee to keep the work going. Member McCullough, if you could please do a roll call on that.
Chair Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
And Vice Chair McCullough, yes.
Thank you. And with that, the meeting is actually over. So Member McCullough, I'm sorry, Member McCullough?
No, that's what I was gonna say.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if you could just do a roll call for closing out the meeting.
Absolutely. Chair Clancy?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
And Vice Chair McCullough, yes.
All right. Thank you, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank
you.
you.